The Talmud is a collection of Jewish commentary and thought. It has stories, it has personal life kind of situation, it has commentaries on the Mishnah, on the Torah, on lots of different things. And there are also two Talmuds, not just one, there are two. Yerushalmi, one from Jerusalem, and one from Bavli. And they contradict each other in some things, right? And you can use that and post it on social media and claim that this is what the Jews believe in, usually twisting it out of context. But even if it is in context, just because you can find it doesn't mean this is mainstream Judaism. And this is not what the Talmud is about. It's a different animal. There is wisdom there. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing the Talmud or anything like that. But I just want to make it clear that it's ridiculous. The Talmud. Look at those Jews and their writings and what they're saying. Why the Talmud? What's in the Talmud that's bothering you so much? Like, out of all the Jewish library, the Talmud takes all the attention. Maybe you should focus more on the Mishnah. It has more, maybe, kind of weight than the Talmud. And if you really want to focus on something, focus on the Torah. But I recommend not. This is how it sounds like to the average Jew. Basically, it would have the same weight of argument if you guys could just pick up a sentence and maybe distort it a little bit for fun out of any of my videos and then say that all Jews, this is what they believe in. On second thought, this is exactly what they do for any Jew who said anything ever. If they don't like communism, then Marx is suddenly like the most devout Jew and the Jewish representative. If they don't like capitalism, then the founder of Google, I think one of the most Jewish, or I don't know how many of them are there, and say, okay, this is an example of the Jew. So I guess this is not that far-fetched. Like you take random stuff from the Talmud and says, oh, this is what the Jews believe in. Or you take a random Jew and like, oh, the Jews are like this or like that. Yeah, it's the same logic. I guess there is consistency there. I named this video the Talmud for Dummies because I'm sure that most people that like using the Talmud to bash the Jews are dummies. I think they have an attention span of maybe a minute at best. But now, if you're still here with me, I'm gonna gradually try to explain what the Talmud is, and I'm gonna do it in a rising difficulty. So just quit the video when you lose track, because I'm gonna do that in a Jewish way, and exactly the way the Talmud is written. I'm gonna get to that part. I'm not gonna torture you yet. The Talmud takes the Jewish traditions, the Jewish stories called legend. A lot of it is just stories. This is part of the preserving the Jewish identity and history. And for the Jews, those things are important because our history is also our strength. And by the end of the video, I want to bring some sayings from the Mishnah, Talmud, Bible that are so important, life lessons, and are incredibly relevant for now, for the world we are living in now. And I want to show it, why those books, why Jews are so busy at trying to preserve all that knowledge. Those who don't know history, those who don't study, are doomed to repeat the same mistake. And Jews have made many, many mistakes. Some of them were kind of repetitive, but in general, we are very creative. We always get a new mistake. Like we say anti-Semitism is a shape-shifting thing, is because Jews are also shape-shifters. Like, that we're like, okay, we tried that led to that. Okay, let's try something. Judah, it's the preservance of the, and let me try to explain how the Talmud is written in the most ridiculous manner. Okay, so I saw this beautiful quote, which is, I saw it in Hebrew and I couldn't find it, like the original I think was in English. But it was so accurate that I'll try to translate it, which is funny because I think it was originally English, but I only have the Hebrew version of it. This is a quote from the American theologist Rosemary Redford Ruther.
ChatGPT translation. Classical Judaism created literature that at first glance looks like a grandmother's attic, where endless amounts of strange objects that may one day be useful have accumulated as beads on a string, lovingly collected over the years, with no apparent interest in distinguishing between weighty and trivial subjects. Only with the greatest effort will the ordinary come to systematic thinking, logical development, and hierarchical order to fit themselves into the non-systematic style, skipping from topic to topic of the rabbis, and to grasp the line of thought found at the foundation of what appears to be random discussion linking separate topics. Gradually, one comes to see that the apparent mishmash of sacred and trivia is a means of conveying the rabbinic message that is trying to reach every corner of daily life with the presence of the divine. The rabbis see no problem in presenting profound remarks on the nature of God in the midst of a discussion on cheese consumption.
And this is exactly what it is. Okay, so I want to bring the weird example that I said before, and I'm going to use J.K. Rowling because I'm going to bring her up again later on the most Talmudic way. Oh, Talmud for dummies, huh? Oh well, good luck. So I'm going to bring out Harry Potter. I know it sounds funny, but for many, many years, the Jewish writings, the Jewish stories, everything that we have in many places that the Jews went to, it might have been the only written knowledge in this area. It's well preserved. The Jews kept it very well. But how many places would have the Jews went to where you have that richness? It's not like right now that we have books upon books that now it's the TikTok generation, which are super important to read because books have meaning, stories have meanings, and there's something that I repeat time and time again. Stories matter. And the Talmud, what it does, it takes those stories, takes those concepts, takes those principles, takes those bits of information and brings life to them, brings sense to them, tries to understand the thought and to basically reverse engineer many times. Like I said, the Talmud is everything from everything. So here I'm going to say, okay, so we have the story of J.K. Rowling, and we are seeing now that J.K. Rowling had declared that any woman that would say something transphobic and will fear arrest from the Scottish police because of it, she will retweet whatever she said and she'll get arrested with them. What we see here is an incredible strength and leadership. But if we go to the Harry Potter books, where we have the 5th year with, I don't know if you all read it, but there is a professor there that tries to deny reality, right? There is the evil person, Voldemort, and he comes back. And nobody wants to believe it. Nobody wants to believe that the danger is there. Now tell me, is it different from what we're experiencing right now, where the government, and in Harry Potter it was the Ministry of Magic, is cooperating with forces that are about to explode and take over the magical world and kill all the mudbloods and attack all the muggles, and they don't want to face it, so they deny it, and the media lies, and there are laws, and they try chasing people who tell other people that, hey, there is a danger coming, this Voldemort magician, he's back. And those people who are the prophets who say that, hey, this Voldemort guy is back, they're getting persecuted. Now, those who grew up and read those books and are now behaving like Ambridge, like this person who presented a government that didn't want to deal with the reality, so they started persecuting those who say the truth. How many of those wokesters right now that walk around act like that? They don't want to deal with the truth. They deny it. They want to see the world the way they want to see it. And even though they read the Harry Potter books, they don't know that, hey, that was a warning. Come on, that was a warning. The Harry Potter books, you read it as a child. When you read the 5th Harry Potter book and you don't understand that what you're living right now, is actually the real life version of what happens in the 5th Harry Potter book. This is where the Talmud comes. I know it sounds weird, but this is where what Talmud would say, you guys, here is what we are learning from the story of Umbridge going against Harry Potter. How do we see that? How do we prevent that? How do we raise awareness that this situation can happen? And this is a quote from the Mishnah that I want to bring up. Koveshet Novuato. That's the, I don't know how to, I don't know where to look up for it, so I say it in English. And yeah, I was being lazy. What you gonna do about it, eh? Anyway, English is, he who suppresses his prophecy. A prophet that doesn't say the prophecy that he was given, his sentence would be death by heavens. Basically, it means that the fact that he does that would probably lead to his death. So Chazal, which means our wise men, may they rest in peace, they wrote and talked about a certain situation that I think doesn't appear in the Bible. What I meant here is commandment, not situation. The situation is also inspired by the story of Jonah and the fact that he didn't do what he was supposed to do without a little bit of persuasion. Check out the story if you're not familiar with it. But there is a reason a big fish ate him up and then spewed him out. But is in the Mishnah. So it's a traditional, it's something that was added later. And I want to talk because this is exactly what we are seeing right now. So this is the manifestation, the moral code that was written in the Mishnah, but it's, there are similar things in the Talmud, which was written a little bit later. But for all intents and purposes, those who write about the Talmud, it's this, I would say they would think the Mishnah is the Talmud too, so it doesn't matter. The Mishnah, which I touched on before, is a collection of books that were written between the 1st and the 3rd century, or the actual books that hold all the traditions that are not reflected in the Bible of the Jewish people. And then the Talmud are 2 books, 2 collections, right? Jerusalem collections that also have things like how you tend the ground, that the Babylonian Talmud doesn't have because it only considers Jews that live in the land of Israel. And they were written between the 3rd and the 5th century. And then after the 5th century, you have a little bit of a period where a lot of Jews were busy spreading the Talmud. And then after that, it was not a long period. The Jews went back to writing and created a lot more new books, like the books that Rambam created, like Mishnah Torah. And then after that, Shulchan Aruch, and then you have the Zohar and the Kabbalah, and the Hasidic type of Judaism is a lot more spiritual based and prayer based than the other types of Orthodox Judaism. And then everything I'm saying now, by now it's all mixed up, everybody does whatever they want. So what's here? Basically, you have the Jewish history and morals that unite everything. So Jews might not disagree with, is there a Messiah? There isn't a Messiah. Is there even a God, or there isn't a God? What is God? Is God like that? What's more important, studying or praying? What's more important, working? Who is more Jewish? Those who work the land, because this is also a really big part of the Torah, or those who preserve the Talmud? Those are all important parts in the general Jewish preservation, which is the number one goal of Judaism. Judaism is a whole collection of methodologies, stories, history, moral, code of conduct, traditions, where, what to eat, how to slaughter, how to clean yourself, wash your hands after this, say thank you every day in the morning, say thank you every time you eat, say all those things, like a collection of wisdom that the Jewish people accumulated during, now it's millennia. And the main goal, especially after the destruction of the Second Temple, is the preservation of life and Jewish life, Jews as a nation. So what does it mean? that this commandment was written later and that was not written in the Bible, that the Jews have learned at some point that those who don't say what they think will happen bring disaster on themselves and probably the other people around them. And what are we seeing right now? All those people who don't talk, who don't speak, who don't say what they really think, they are going against the moral code that Chazal had described 2,000 years ago. So the Jews, this is how we preserved information. We learn that we added this layer of bringing stories and history into morals that could be followed and not telling your prophecy what you think will happen. If you're the kind of person who can see what's going to happen, one of the worst things you can do as a person. J.K. Rowling wrote that story about people who lie about what really happens. And the Jews say more than that. It's not that Harry Potter, not only that he had known the truth, it was his duty. He was obligated to speak the truth wherever he could and prophesize and bring that prophecy, hey, something bad is about to happen. What Tommy Robinson did is exactly that. He did what the Jews deemed 2,000 years ago one of the most necessary things that a person can learn to do is to prophesize. If you see what is about to come, the gravest thing you can do is not talk about it. Who is a prophet? This is one thing that I want to explain for one moment, because Christianity and Islam took a lot of Jewish terminology, but if prophecy and being a prophet in Christianity is something that can't exist anymore, for example, yeah, I'm sure there are Jews that also believe it, but there are also some rabbis that were saying that they expect that during the 20th century, there would be the return of prophets. Anyone can be a prophet. You can be a woman. You don't have to be Jewish. It's not a requirement. But what is a requirement? The requirement is people with high imagination, vivid imagination, people who can have imagery in their heads and understand and connect different things. For example, a person like that would be Albert Einstein. You can look at him as a prophet. Another prophet would be Tommy Robinson, who went around and tried to warn UK of what's coming long before anyone else seen it. Yes, Tommy Robinson, in a traditional way, is a prophet. What happened, right, between the last prophets that we had and the 20th century? What was it that prevented people, like I said before, it doesn't have to be Jewish, from making prophecies? Well, basically, to make prophecies, you have to have vast knowledge of the world and imagination and creativity. So for years and years that there are two factors here. The world of the Bible was a lot more tightly knit and connected, and then it became bigger and bigger and bigger, and the complexities of trying to predict something that is about to happen or prophesize became more and more difficult. So we see a lot of prophecies, people that were trying to predict what's going to happen, that went astray because it was too much. But today's world, everything, the 20th century, made information flow so much faster, where you can read the newspapers from all around the world and everything is affecting everything. In theory, you have what you need to be able to prophesize, to bring prophecy. And creativity and vivid imagination is something that you develop. So if for a long time that ability was suppressed, and there was a lot of, for example, misunderstanding between different ways of thinking, between different cultures and things like that, then being a prophet and making prophecy was probably seen as impossible. Another someone who could be seen as a prophet that prophesied is Herzl. So we can see that 20th century really did have a lot of prophets. But all those people could have been considered prophets. Like I said, you don't have to be Jewish. You can be a woman. In other words, הכובש את נבואתו, he who suppresses his prophecy, that's you. You're the one that this commandment is talking about. Just a word of warning. The other commandment that is here in the same place is that those who give false prophecies, they have to get punished, but by human judges. And that is, of course, a lot of our media people. I hope those false journalists will be at some point judged for their false reports. This is Judaism. That knowledge, that wisdom, that understanding. This is the Talmud. Yes, there are a lot of discussions in the Talmud and people who come to the wrong conclusions. But it's all part of brainstorming, and it's also your job as a Jew who studies to understand what is applicable to what case. There is a reason they bring up God when they talk about cheese, because they try to animate certain cases where that is the right way to act. And that knowledge, the Talmud was edited a million times after it was written. Everything goes through edits. Those things get like refined, and polished, and how to brainstorm, how to become more creative. Those are all techniques that the Jews accumulated years and years and years and years and years of knowledge that they put in the ethic for any situation, for any case that might come. We preserve that knowledge because that knowledge can save us from whatever will come. But at the same time, if this knowledge is also who we are, like our history, we save it, we preserve it, and then it preserves us. And this is Judaism. All those stories, all those experiences, all that accumulated knowledge that is being passed down from generation to generation. It's everybody that is taking part of that is responsible to preserve this knowledge. So you could say that Judaism, in principle, like its people, is the tradition and culture of knowledge, of creativity, of preservance, of morals, everything. This is what Judaism is, and this is what Jews are doing. This is what we're being taught, like in so many different ways, from generation to generation, to do that, to continue that tradition. And that is the Talmud, okay? So if you take a segment from the Talmud and say, hey, this is what the Jews believe, in the same manner, you can cut anything that I said in any video and say that this is Judaism. This is how ridiculous it looks to a Jew. There is a lot more that I would love to share, some wisdom from the Talmud, but I guess I do it in different time. Thank you all. Like, comment, subscribe. See ya. Oh, and I have a Buy Me Coffee, and I really need your support, so thank you so much. Link in the description.